Hey, Sci-Fi Buzzers, come on in here to Sci-Fi Central. You know where it is, right around the corner there. Come on, there, you got it. Hi, I'm Mike Jarek, and it's great to be back at home here at Sci-Fi Central. We've been at cons the last couple of shows, and it's good to be back here. I'm just catching up on some of the news of the realm. My computer. Oh, look at this. Night of the Living Dead celebrated its 25th anniversary with a mini-con of sorts in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Boy, I wonder what they served at the snack bar. I bet it was fun, though. And check this out. The Star Wars Trilogy widescreen edition Laserdisc is just out. There are 9 discs with the 3 movies on it, plus a 207-page full-color book. Wow. If you carry that home without bursting your spleen, it'll cost you $250. That's not so bad. Well, while I was gone, one of our top producers here at Sci-Fi Buzz, Susan Hyman over there, decided she wanted to go visit Sly Stallone over at Demolition Man. So you and Sly, about like this now, huh? Well, about like, well, okay, so you kind of know him.
Yeah, actually we visited a set that he wasn't really much a part of, but it was an incredible set. It took place in an underground world in future LA, and there were all these extras standing around with weird makeup on and ratty, torn, battle fatigue clothes.
Wait a minute, that sounds like LA today. This is LA in the future?
Yes.
Last spring, Sci-Fi Buzz got a special invitation to the set of Demolition Man, the new sci-fi action thriller starring Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes.
We're police officers. We're not trained for this kind of violence.
Set in the year 2032, the film takes place in a merged city called San Angeles. A major earthquake has occurred, and the post-quake atmosphere allows people willing to abide by stringent rules to live above ground, while freethinkers are relegated to the wasteland underground. Using space in an old Los Angeles warehouse, the wasteland was designed by art director Walter Martitius.
The main thing that we're trying to create here is that the people have had to make do with whatever's available. So they've had to find creative ways to create a world down here, and that's basically what we've done.
The sci-fi wasteland, which thrives in the underbelly of a building, needed to appear messy and decrepit. So Martitius and his crew raided the Warner Ranch for supplies. Then they set out to build a unique underground world.
It was very interesting, and it was a lot of fun for the construction crew because they got to be creative in a way that they really don't get to be. And then it was just them creating as though they were people in the wasteland, which was really a perfect way to do it. And so a lot of the little things that you would never get if you designed it from scratch, you know, came out in the set in a very personal touch.
I am Joel Silver. This is that infant terrible Sly.
The film's producer, Joel Silver, has sunk his teeth into the sci-fi genre once before in Predator. This time around, he was heavily involved in creating the overall look of what he terms an anti-buddy film.
I'm gonna love running this place.
It's been incredible to try to come up with a new world. I mean, it's like a period movie, but the period hasn't come yet, you know? So just to keep it all alive and cooking and all the cars and the locations and the wardrobe and the extras and the gimmicks and the effects and the props, it's just been a rough one. But I think it's paying off.
Companies like Taco Bell and General Motors were eager to be a part of Demolition Man's future world. General Motors even handed over one of their cars of the future for use in the film.
The principal vehicle is a car they refer to as the Ultralight, which is a car that weighs 1,400 pounds. It's made of carbon fiber like the Stealth bomber, and it gets 100 miles to the gallon. And they allowed us to essentially reproduce 10 of those cars. They gave us all the molds and all the design ideas, and we made 10 of them. And essentially that's the police car in the movie. It's like one of the main cars.
Los Angeles has been the setting for other sci-fi films, most notably Blade Runner and Logan's Run. But the creative forces behind Demolition Man were determined to give their film characteristics that went beyond anything audiences had seen before.
I like to think that maybe we're, you know, doing some things people haven't done before. Maybe people will say, hey, that's pretty good, you know. I mean, I think it's really new and fresh, you know, and it really is a whole new view of the future, and it kind of goes beyond where Blade Runner was. So that's our intention.
There's only one way to discover whether Demolition Man achieves its ambitious goals. The film opens in theaters nationwide October 8th.
I'm Bill Carter from Louisiana, and I would like to invite everyone to the Science Fiction Fanfare Convention, a fanfare event featuring Ray Bradbury on October 16th at Southeastern Louisiana University. which is just north of New Orleans in Hammond, Louisiana.
Just ahead, King Kong gets hosed and some help with the riddle of 2001. Its 25th anniversary this very year, but there are still some folks out there who don't know what the movie's about. So a little bit later in our Buzz Best Bets, we will help them out. But first, staff, I need to talk to you about grooming and what to do about banana breath.
What?
No, not you folks. I'm talking about our good friend Kong here. Boy, you need a new do. We all know that King Kong turned 60 this year. But what you may not know is that at Universal Studios Hollywood, another King Kong just turned 7. This Kong spends every day of his life thrilling endless tramloads of mayhem-loving tourists. An exhausting profession, to say the least. So how does the Kongster kick back and relax after a hard day of hell-raising? We should have it so good. Every other week, after the Universal Studios tour goes dark, Kong's own team of personal groomers goes to work. By the time the first tram pulls into the soundstage the next day, His Highness is cleaned, brushed, mended, and fluffed.
I get angry at him every once in a while. He's constantly tearing himself apart. Things tear, things rip. Anything that can go wrong does go wrong just because he's so active all the time.
May Kanaga was Kong's first groomer and has turned the job over to her daughter and son-in-law. A former puppet maker and costumer, May says there's enough work to keep the Pamper Patrol busy all night.
We clean him, we repair him, we're constantly repairing him, we rebuild him, we brush his teeth, we take stuff out of his mouth.
Stuff? What kind of stuff?
Bananas. The favorite thing is bananas. People are always feeding King Kong bananas and chewing gum.
Why would any sane person toss food into the mouth of a mechanical monkey?
I'm sure they believe he's really alive. I think that they're really into the fantasy of it because there's too many bananas in there.
While it was beauty that killed this beast in the movies, his namesake need not worry. The only danger I can foresee is that here at Universal Studios Hollywood, the big guy will be killed with kindness. But so far, all that TLC only seems to be adding to his appeal. Get it?
This is Michael Anderson from Orlando, Florida. There's a great book called The Life and Death of Superman by Roger Stern. It goes through all the Superman great adventures, and it's a must-have for Superman fans.
Dave, stop. Stop, will you?
2001: A Space Odyssey is something of a one-of-a-kind paradox in the entire history of movie making. Almost anyone remotely in touch with pop culture can tell you scene for scene what happens in the movie, but almost no one can tell you what the movie is about. Whether you are part of the smug 1% that can cleanly dissect this tale of evolution, kickstarted by a godlike race of aliens, or not, you might want to check out the Criterion Laserdisc version of 2001. Not only will you see and hear the film in crystal detail, you will have access to a wealth of background material about the making and meaning of this enigmatic classic.
And what we are doing in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey is showing some of the things that will develop in the world of the future as a result of our present first steps into space.
Author Arthur C. Clarke appears in archival footage shot during the making of 2001. There is also interesting behind-the-scenes footage, like this 38-ton spinning soundstage that director Stanley Kubrick used to create eye-popping action like this. The behind-the-scenes footage and photos also document the meticulous scientific research conducted over a 4-year period to produce the most accurate attempt ever at representing the science of space exploration.
These memory tracks around the rear of the helmet are activated by an ARM unit, which has been developed for us with the assistance of IBM.
If you are not familiar with the storage capabilities of Laserdisc technology, you might think these are effects from the film. In reality, these are articles, production designs, and research materials related to 2001. The compressed information is viewed video page by video page. There's even enough room on the disc to include The Sentinel, Arthur C. Clarke's short story written back in 1948 that the film is based on.
Call it the Stargate. For 3 million years, it had circled Saturn, waiting for a moment of destiny that might never come.
In your quest for meaning, you can have the author read to you, or you can see the author wax philosophical and sort of scoot around the meaning of 2001.
We want to convey the message that our Earth is perhaps not the only abode of life. Our sun, the sun that shines on this planet, is one of 100 billion circling in the Milky Way. How many of those shine upon our equals or our masters out there in the depths of space? That's the question that 2001 asks and seeks to answer.
2001: A Space Odyssey has been described many ways. An infuriating combination of exactitude on small points and incoherence on large ones. And somewhere between hypnotic and boring. But perhaps more important than what it does or does not say about the fates of Hal the computer and astronaut Dave Bowman is what it says about the hope for the future that people felt in 1968, 1 year before Neil Armstrong became the first human to step foot on the moon.
About half a century ago, the great Russian space pioneer Tsiolkovsky said, "Earth is the cradle of mankind, but you cannot live in the cradle forever." And that is very true, and out here among the stars lies the destiny of mankind. When we reconnect, Hugo and Nebula winner Connie Willis and the return of the Warlock. 1993 is a big year for Connie Willis. Her second solo novel, Doomsday Book, wins both a Nebula and earlier this month, a Hugo. This kind of recognition doesn't mean much to her neighbors in Greeley, Colorado, but in the sci-fi and fantasy community, it means she's a hot property and that her best work may be still to come.
If I were not writing, in the first place I would be buttonholing people at parties and saying, "Do you think apes have souls?" and stuff like that, making a complete public nuisance of myself, you know? And I used to do this and I could never get anybody to understand what I meant. But then if I'd write a story, then I could explain more what I meant.
Connie Willis's first career was as a teacher, and she still has that authoritative style in her character.
I still can walk down the hall of any school in Colorado and say, "Spit out that gum and get back to class," and they'll do it.
Early on, what did you write about?
I always wanted to write and sell science fiction. That was my only goal in life. It's still my only goal in life. I have no desire to branch out and do mainstream or anything else. But I did serve an interesting apprenticeship. I couldn't sell any of my science fiction for 8 years. And so I kept writing stories. And in the meantime, to earn a little money so I could justify staying home, I wrote confession stories. You know, I wrote for true romance and modern confessions and stuff. I called for help on my CB and got a rapist instead. And I wrote, one of my best was about the Big Thompson flood. It was called Swept Away on a Torrent of Passion. And let's see, what else did I do? My favorite title, it wasn't my best story, but my favorite title was While My Husband Took the Kids to Church, We Prayed We Wouldn't Get Caught. And I loved that. That was fun. They were fun to write.
Connie's Doomsday Book is a quantum leap from her confession story days. It's a time travel tale set in the Middle Ages, at the time of the Black Death.
I love disasters. I know that's not acceptable, but I do. I love the Titanic. I love the plague. They're interesting, you know, and they're like melting pots for every aspect of humanity. I mean, if you're going to be brave, you're much braver in a disaster. If you're going to fall completely apart, you're going to fall apart much more completely than you do in suburban America. when you're on the Titanic. And so I think that it's a great place to watch people. And I just think it's amazing to see what happens when the world is out of control.
How important are awards to you?
I've won a lot of awards in the field, and people say, well, you don't care if you win, you don't need any more. I really care. I mean, they mean a lot to me. The first time I was ever nominated for Hugo, I was in Boston. I knew nobody. I was just a total newcomer to the field, and it was such an exciting moment. And I was sitting with my editor, Charlie Ryan, and said to him, when I was a kid, I read those Hugo collections, and I never dreamed I would ever be sitting here, you know, nominated for one. And this is just the best moment in my life. I can't imagine anything better than this because it's what I wanted when I was a kid. And Bob Silverberg turned around and said, I always felt the same way. And it was like, well, that's it. I have reached the pinnacle of my life. Nothing can be better than this. And nothing has been.
Julian Sands is back as the Warlock. Next. Warlock is back. Now, if you're not a horror fan, let me tell you, I'm not talking Warlock with Richard Whitmark, that old Western. No, 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 no. I'm talking about Julian Sands' Warlock. You know, the Warlock that escaped from 17th century Boston in the first movie. Let me say it again. I'm not talking Western. Though the new dark fantasy Warlock, the Armageddon, bears some resemblance to the original movie, Warlock, it isn't being hyped as a sequel. Director Tony Hickox, who also helmed Hellraiser 3, would rather audiences view this film as a horror than a fantasy.
It is very much a big comic book, but it's more like, it's a dark comic book. It's more like the Batman.
I'm not a man. I'm a witch.
A warlock.
Actor Julian Sands is the only holdover from the original Warlock. As the title character, he gets to portray a mean, lean, satanic machine.
The Warlock has been reborn upon Earth with the mission of gathering together a group of ancient runestones which once held in his hands and during the saying of a particular spell will unleash the Armageddon upon Earth.
Runestones. They have the power to free the devil or to keep him trapped where he belongs. It's a world of magic, son, where nothing is what it seems to be.
Warlock weathered some tough times with the movie ratings board. Hickox believes his film was treated harshly by the board because it glorifies gratuitous violence. For instance, the Warlock, in his attempts to secure 6 runestones and destroy the world, callously kills those willing to hand them over.
I reveal my power. You give me the stone.
That's the deal.
The stone.
Here, take it.
Ride's over.
Much of Warlock was shot on the Disney Ranch, the same place where Little House on the Prairie came to life. But for this project, effects specialist Bob Keynes and his image animation team have created some less than wholesome effects. To illustrate, director Hickox offered a blow-by-blow call of a scene. The Warlock has sent a car careening towards one of the young druid warriors out to stop his reign of terror.
Kenny, who's a hero, has tried to blow the tire, so that didn't work. The car kept on coming at him. So now what he's done is he's lifted a manhole cover, which the car's going to ram into, hopefully accordioning into about that size, matchbox size. If it all goes, well, there's 6 tons of hydraulics inside there. So if it all goes to plan and nobody dies, it's going to be a great effect.
The budget for Warlock, the Armageddon, was $3 million, almost $4 million less than the original. But with a bit of technical wizardry using computer-generated images, Hickox hopes to deliver a crowd pleaser. And maybe he will. After all, in the unpredictable world of horror, anything is possible.
Picasso. Definitely Picasso.
While we're on the subject of horror, the Fox Television Network has announced that they're going to run the Rocky Horror Picture Show for the very first time on TV next month. Yes, you can now watch the 1975 classic without your umbrella. Check your local listings, but Fox plans to air it twice in October.
Next week, meet Marta Kristen. She played Judy Robinson for 3 years on Lost in Space. And the Introvision process. It helped make The Fugitive a hit.
I'm Mike Jarek, and by the way, this is the beginning of our second year here on the Sci-Fi Channel, so the staff and I just want to send out this message to all the executives at the channel. Thank you for letting us have so much fun and actually paying us for it.